Arrival. The Kolak Odyssey by Temperance Quill. Prologue. The year is 2073. The question of whether we're alone in the universe has been answered. The day the Kolaks arrived, 3 ships orbited the globe for all to see, but unlike in the movies, they didn't come for conquest. They came asking for an alliance. In a blast that was heard over every communication device on the planet. Humans of Earth, we are official representatives of Kolak. We come to you in the spirit of cooperation and mutual benefit as befits 2 sentient species. We speak peaceful congress with those who are willing. All communication made in good faith will be answered. The response on the ground ran the gamut from overjoyed to mass panic. While world leaders and oligarchs quietly contemplated how they could use the situation to their advantage, people came together and held rallies, large and small. Some welcomed the visitors, while others rebuked them. Many theorized that the only reason it didn't escalate into violence was because the aliens weren't within reach. It took nearly 4 years for the fervor to die down and regular communication to be established. Secret embassies were activated or erected so that diplomats could meet with them in relative safety and privacy. The aliens rejected some, which caused its own set of diplomatic complications. To temper the eagerness of the politicians, militaries instilled caution, implementing strict security procedures and putting numerous facilities and resources into monitoring the aliens and their ships. 5 years after their arrival, the Kolak's presence on Earth was still a rare occurrence, preferring to stay in the safety and self-reliability of their ships. When on Earth to negotiate or process a transaction, they stayed within the tight security of the facilities provided for them. Chapter 1. Daniella. 5 nights a week I came to the U.S. Embassy for extraterrestrials. I did my job and made sure to stay ambivalent about what was going on inside these walls. I may only be a janitor, but I still made a decent mint considering it was a federal position at a high-security location. I wasn't about to risk that by poking my nose where it didn't belong. Reaching down, I absently rubbed my nearly useless leg. Even though I'd been medically discharged, I'd left the military in good enough standing that I'd been able to get the security clearance needed to qualify for this job, and the health insurance that came with it. I was halfway through my rounds for the night when I swore I heard a shuffling sound that wasn't typical. Forcing myself to continue pushing the mop back and forth across the floor, I strained my ears, trying to hear it again. After a few minutes, I was ready to believe it had been my imagination until I heard the creak of a door opening. No one was supposed to be here. That was the whole point of my ridiculous shift. They didn't want to risk the Kolaks seeing the use of menial labor, believing that they would appear uncivilized in the eyes of the supposedly advanced aliens. Given that they knew next to nothing about the Kolaks' culture, their assumption on the matter said a lot more about them than the aliens. But I wasn't about to rock the boat by arguing the point, so I blacked out my bedroom and worked at night. Something that hadn't bothered me until this moment when I realized I was practically alone in a secure facility late at night with no weapons and no way to run. There was security, of course, but they focused primarily on the exterior perimeter, and it was a skeleton crew since there weren't any VIPs present. They saved the real security for when there was something important to secure and a janitor didn't count. Gripping the mop tighter, I reached into my pocket and palmed the box cutter I kept there. I felt better having a weapon in my hand, even though I would have preferred a pistol. But getting caught with a gun in the facility was a big infraction unless you were security, as in tried for treason and thrown in a secret prison big. Continuing my mopping, the box cutter mostly hidden between my hand and the handle, I kept my ears open for any more sounds as I headed in the direction of the noise. I had a wristband that connected me to security, but I wasn't about to call a false alarm if I was just jumping at shadows. The guys would never let me live it down, and I had enough pride not to put myself in that position. Rounding a corner, I found a door had been left open to an unused office. I'd concluded a while ago that most of the facility had been designed with wishful thinking rather than any realistic expectations, because they only used about 20% of it. The rest of it was kept closed and airtight for when the day came they actually needed it, which meant doors didn't randomly get left open. Edging along the wall toward the door, I heard a rustling coming from inside. If someone had broken in, they were about to have a very bad day. Peeking around the door jamb, all thoughts of calling security flew out of my head when I realized the one snooping around wasn't human. I'd never seen one of the aliens in person before, but no human had skin that color of jet black that made it almost invisible in the dark. Even my dark complexion didn't come close. I wasn't sure what to do. If I called security, the situation could escalate into violence that wouldn't end well for anyone, especially me. There wasn't anything in the office the alien could use, so this wasn't a threat to national security, except it showed the aliens were capable of coming and going as they pleased. Something I would definitely have to report or risk facing jail time. Giving the room another peek, I had to keep from laughing when I saw the alien deeply fascinated by a stapler. I was probably taking a huge risk, but things would end badly either way if the alien didn't want to get caught. Careful or you'd lose an eye with that, I announced, my presence as casually as I could manage. The alien practically threw the stapler back on the desk as though it were a snake about to bite him. Turning in my direction, the alien tilted his head in a way that reminded me of my dog Hawk when he was puzzled. But for all I knew, he was about to shoot lasers out of his eyes and disintegrate me, so I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. You keep eye-destroying weapons just lying around? The alien asked in a tone that was a poor imitation of a disgruntled and disappointed father. This time I laughed. No, it's not a weapon. I was just pointing out that you could lose an eye. Eyes I couldn't make out in the dark, but for the green sheen you saw in animals when the light hit them just right. You seem rather unfazed that I'm here. Do you have sensors that detected my presence? Were you sent to intercept me? I was tempted to lie, make it sound like I had an entire assault team just waiting for my call. But I would eventually be found out, and for some reason I didn't want this alien to remember me as a liar, even if I never saw him again. No, just bad luck on your part. Most of the side of the facility isn't used, but it still needs to be cleaned. Another hour and you would have gotten away with it. Now I have to report this. I don't suppose you'd be agreeable to showing me how you got in. The alien smiled with a set of gleaming ivory teeth. Some I could swear were pointed. So you alone know I'm here. Gripping the box cutter tighter, my thumb positioned to pop the blade, I warned him. Don't get any ideas. I push one button and this entire facility will be alerted. I was trying to keep this from becoming an intergalactic incident. The hair on the back of my neck rose at the look he was giving me. And I appreciate that. My superiors would not be pleased to learn I'd been injured or captured in an infiltration. Something about the way he said that put me in mind of a child with their hand in the cookie jar. You're not supposed to be here, are you? He suddenly looked so sheepish I didn't need his verbal confirmation. Your diplomats only let us see what they want us to see. I was curious if they were hiding anything. He shrugged his shoulders as if leaving his ship and sneaking into a top-secret facility was like taking a Sunday stroll. There wouldn't have been much to find. Most of the space isn't in use. I was almost sorry to disappoint him. But I did find something. I found you. The look he gave me was that of a curious cat before it decided to eat something. I don't suppose this is something we could keep just between us. For a second I considered it. I couldn't blame the guy for being curious, but... You're not worth risking jail time for. Jail? I could be tried for treason for not reporting your presence. We're talking a life sentence. At the very least, I'd lose my job, which I need. What about a head start, then? It was a fine line, but as long as they knew he'd been here, they didn't need to actually catch him. I didn't like the idea of them getting their hands on him. If his people didn't know he'd come down, there were those who would squirrel him away to some hidden mountain bunker where he'd never be seen again. Look, I'm just the janitor. It's not like they'd expect me to apprehend you. So if you happen to be gone before security gets here, that's not my fault. The gratitude in his smile helped ease some of the guilt over the decision I'd made. Well, get going, I prodded when he didn't seem in a hurry to move. What's your name? What? I could not believe he was taking time to exchange pleasantries now. What is your name? His speaking it slowly as if I hadn't heard it the first time made me want to smack him. Daniella, why? I would know the name of my savior. It was said with such cheek I knew he didn't mean it, but at least he finally started moving, and damn could he move. Getting the walkie off my belt, I tried to put some urgency in my voice. Thankfully, the sound on these things was terrible, or I wasn't sure I could have pulled it off. Lee, pick up! What's up, cleaning lady? Drop your mop and can't reach it? Damn him, that only happened once. The brace on my leg made it hard to bend sometimes. We got an intruder, last seen running down corridor I-23. You serious? Wait for someone to review the cameras and find out, or you can get your ass down here. Things moving fast, I snapped. Just because I wasn't active anymore didn't mean I'd forgotten my training or lost my mind. It's a Kolak? He kept asking, though I could hear him barking orders and the alarms were activated. Ain't seen no human move like that. And that was the God's honest truth. You alright? Yeah, it ran when it saw me. I warmed a bit at his show of concern. Lee was like a kid brother. He could make you want to hug and smack him at the same time. Alright, stay where you are. One of the boys will be by soon. They'll want to debrief you. I know the drill, and I was not looking forward to it. I hoped letting him get away would be worth the hassle I was about to be put through. Chapter 2, Daniella. Sitting in the general's office, I was officially on edge. I'd expected to end up in an interview room or in some small side office with an officer to fill out a report, but the MPs took me straight to the top. I mean, I understood that one of the aliens breaking into the facility was a security concern, but what did he expect from me? I guess I was about to find out when General Nelson walked into the room. Portly with age and in possession of a scowl that can make children cry. He glared at me as he took a seat at his desk. From what I understood, he'd been aiming for retirement when given this post and was none too happy about it. Was this my problem? Looked like it was about to be. What's this nonsense that has me being woken up at 2 a.m.? And heaven help you, woman, if this was a false alarm, he groused. Well, since I've never seen one, I can't confirm for sure. Spoof photos of the Kolaks were so prevalent it was impossible to know if any were real, and no government had ever released an official photo with one of their conditions to my understanding. But the guy I found snooping around either wasn't human or decided to break into a secure government facility in costume. I responded flippantly before I could bite my tongue. Civilian or not, it was never a good idea to mouth off to a grumpy general. Describe it, he demanded, pulling out pen and paper. On the shorter side, maybe 5'8". It was hard to make out because everything on it was jet black, even its skin. I started to describe before I was interrupted. Jet black skin? He seemed strangely excited about that detail. Yes, the only other feature I could make out was its hair, if it was hair, found on its back like dreads. I saw them bouncing as it ran away. Could you assess any possible motives? Not really. It was playing with a stapler when I found it. A stapler. His scowl finally broke with incredulousness. A stapler, I confirmed. Of all the useless. Dropping his pen on the desk, he ran a hand through his hair. So what I'm hearing is there may or may not have been an alien in the facility, and it was found examining a stapler. That sounds accurate, sir. Could you identify it if you saw it again? I couldn't say. I don't know how similar they are in appearance. I don't even know if the skin I did see was its real skin. It could have been some kind of paint for all I know. I was trying to answer as honestly as I could while at the same time being as useless as possible. The general glared at me. So what you're telling me is that you're absolutely useless. I dealt with a lot of jerks in my life, but no way was he somehow going to put this on me. If you mean do I not have the answers you want based on a few moments' observation of an intruder decked out in black fleeing down a dark hallway, then I guess I am. Even as the words came out of my mouth, a voice inside was screaming in my head to shut up. Get out! Yes, sir. Rising as quickly as I could, I almost toppled but was able to stumble my way out of the office. I headed straight for the security hub so I could check out. It was already 2 hours past the end of my shift. If something needed cleaning, it could wait till tonight. It made me warm inside when I found Lee waiting for me. Crazy night, huh? He asked, taking my security pass and marking it as turned in. You have no idea. I think I may have just gotten myself fired. What? Why? I mouthed off to the general, I admitted, cringing at the memory. Oh, is that all? I wouldn't worry about it. Do you have any idea how hard it is to find someone with the necessary clearance who's willing to take your job? It took him a second to realize what he'd said. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. But it's all right. If I could afford to be doing something else, I wouldn't have this job either. Gathering my things, both of us headed for the door. I was zonked and all I wanted was my comfy bed and a few hours of sleep. Lee made sure I got to my car like he always did, no matter how many times I told him it wasn't necessary. I cranked the heat and headed home, but it turned out I wasn't going to get that sleep just yet. When my phone rang, I'd only been down for 2 hours. Yes, I snapped into the phone, ready to rip whoever had woken me a new one. Lieutenant McGinnis, your presence has been requested. Why did they always say that? A request implied something was optional, and this didn't sound optional. Where? I asked, my brain still trying to boot up. At the embassy, Lieutenant. An officer will be waiting at the entrance to escort you. I thanked God for small favors that they hadn't gotten a jerk to make the call. I'm on my way, ETA 45 minutes. I live less than 30 minutes away, but there was no chance I was getting in a car without some coffee first. We'll be expecting you. Too tired to try figuring this out, I started the coffee pot and slapped together some breakfast. I was not going to survive this without caffeine and something in my stomach. I ended up getting there 5 minutes late, but I had a hard time caring. As promised, they had an officer waiting for me. His uniform read all bright, and he wasn't a complete dick, matching his pace to mine instead of forcing me to struggle to keep up. I found myself back in the general's office, but this time he had company. Another officer in a suit had joined him. Lieutenant McGinnis, I apologize for bringing you in during your off hours, but we felt this couldn't wait. The suit began the conversation. And you are? I asked, raising my brow at him. Pardon me, where are my manners? Edward Peterson, attaché to Ambassador Abernathy. He offered his hand. I took it out of politeness. And what could you possibly need from me? Direct. I can appreciate that. Tugging on his suit, he continued. The Kolak ambassador has made a rather odd request. When we sent them our report of last night's incident, they requested permission to interview the witness, namely, you. We have granted that request. They want to talk to me? What could they possibly want? It's not like I knew anything. Who are you to question orders, Lieutenant? General Nelson barked. I was sure it was very effective with soldiers, but I had one advantage. I'm a civilian, General. I'm not required to follow orders, just meet the conditions of my employment contract, which doesn't include meeting alien ambassadors, though I'm sure this request isn't optional. Peterson's fidgeting confirmed my theory. So if we could get this over with. I've had 2 hours of sleep and would like nothing better than to get back to bed. If I wasn't mistaken, the officer's lips twitched as he struggled not to smile. Very well, if you'll follow me, Peterson responded primly as he headed for the door. Shaking my head, I wondered what I was getting into. The answer ended up being more than I bargained for. Apparently the sweats and tennis shoes I had worn weren't acceptable, so the first place we went was the commissary, where Peterson bought me the best of what they had. A pair of black slacks, a white dress shirt, and flats. He scowled when he realized nothing could be done about my brace. Once satisfied, we made our way back to the facility, where I was directed to one of the conference rooms where 2 figures waited. They were pretty boring as far as aliens went, appearing mostly human except for the exotic tones of their skin, almost non-existent ears, and larger than normal eyes, though I'm sure there were more differences beneath the skin. Of the 2 that sat in the room, one had a green cast to its skin that reminded me of jade. The other was jet black, like our visitor from the night before. Daniella McGinnis, the jade one asked as he, at least I assumed it was a he, rose to his feet. Yes. I was unsure what the protocol was here. He hadn't moved from in front of his seat, and I was still halfway across the room. Join us, please. He gestured to the seat across the table from them. With directions to follow, I made my way to the seat. I could feel both their eyes on me, specifically on the brace on my leg. You may go. Jade gestured at Peterson and the 2 officers that accompanied him. Peterson stumbled behind me. Of course, we'll be right outside. He placed his hand on my shoulder and gave it a squeeze. I was under no delusions. That squeeze was a warning. Once the doors were shut, Jade began the meeting. We appreciate you agreeing to see us, Miss McGinnis. On behalf of our diplomatic corps, you have our apologies for the fright you must have experienced last night upon finding an intruder while on your rounds. We're also grateful it didn't end in violence. Be assured the perpetrator will be identified and face disciplinary actions for his transgression. When I remained silent, he seemed to lose his composure. Apparently that wasn't the reaction he'd been expecting. I found my gaze drifting to the other one. When our eyes met, his a striking shade of amber, he gave me a broad grin that struck a chord of recognition. The double pair of canines that were larger than a human's and curved backward slightly caught my attention. That was when I realized the intruder from last night was sitting right in front of me. We would like to ask some questions if we may, Jade interrupted. Go ahead, I told him, trying to break the silent communication that was going on between me and the Kolak across from me. This report says that you refrained from discharging your firearm even though you had it drawn on the suspect. That caught my attention. What? Let me see that. I pulled the folder from the Jade one's hands and reversed it before he could stop me. From my periphery, I saw the black one stop Jade from taking it back. Skimming the file, it looked like someone had tried to choose it up until it became a work of fiction. Apparently, I was a security officer that had spotted the intruder while on patrol. I had drawn my weapon, but not fired once I determined that the intruder wasn't human. They'd even explained my leg by saying it was injured during the chase. Other than the fact that the incident happened, this report was a complete fabrication. Was that what Peterson was trying to warn me about? I had no doubt that if I contradicted this report, I would not be exempt from the fallout. But if they already had the intruder as evidenced by him sitting right in front of me, then they already knew this report was falsified. Looking up, I glared at him, and his response was to grin even more broadly. So it does. I pushed the report back to Jade. By your reaction, I take it this report is inaccurate, Jade asked rhetorically, with a touch of triumph. Ignoring him, my gaze was glued to those amber orbs. Don't do this to me, my voice cracked. They had no idea what kind of position they were about to put me in. The intruder's grin faded, and his four-fingered hand reached out to cover my own. No harm will come to you. I won't allow it. Are you in danger? If we don't agree that this report is what happened? Oh yeah. Peterson would make sure I paid. Then this is what happened. He gave me a grin that I think was supposed to be reassuring. Jade started sputtering. Ixaka, we can't just agree with this fabrication. They're already trying to use it as leverage in negotiations. As they should. We were in the wrong and got caught. I'll not have that blow back on the one that allowed me to escape, Ixaka shot back. Looking at me again, his tone softened. It was not my intention to put you in danger by calling this meeting. What was your intention? I wanted to see if you would be able to recognize me. And I wanted to know if you were part of this. His hand smacked down on the report. I'm relieved to find you're not, he finished, giving me the crooked smile I was becoming familiar with. I was completely lost now. If he were human, I would think he was flirting with me, but despite our similarities, that wasn't possible. Was it? Right. Are we done here, then? I wanted out of this room. For now. The words were hopeful and ominous at the same time. Lazen, allow Mr. Peterson back in the room, if you please. As Lazen, a.k.a. Jade, strode to the door, I leaned forward. Who are you? I felt it in my bones that he was no lowly subordinate. That will be for our next conversation. And make no mistake, we will see each other again. The words were so cheeky it made me want to smack him. I leaned away when the door opened. I hope you were satisfied with your interview, I heard Peterson say. The guy was still full of himself. Quite satisfied. You'll be informed as soon as the perpetrator is identified. I trust you'll see to it Miss McGinnis is transported safely home? Lazen asked as he came back to the table with Peterson. Of course, Peterson answered far too readily. We'll need her again to try to make an identification. You trust that won't be a problem? Not at all. Arrangements for her medical care are still being made. Once things have been finalized, we'll need her then as well, Ixaka added as he rose to his feet. Wait, what? My medical care? What the hell? He looked down at me. Did we forget to mention? Yes, I suppose we did. Since one of us was responsible for your injury, we're in the process of arranging to bring you to one of our ships for treatment. Our technology is such that we should have you back on your feet in no time, rather than the painfully slow pace you would suffer here. He looked so pleased with himself. Of course, Peterson answered again, though the look he sent my way was pure venom. Good day to you then, Mr. Peterson, Miss McGinnis. The pair headed for the door on the other side of the room, a door I didn't have the clearance to open. Once they were gone, I found Peterson's hand on my shoulder. What did you tell them? His fingers dug in. I'd had enough. Gripping his hand, I had it twisted and him hissing on the floor in seconds. You don't get to touch me. Not after I had to tap dance around some very confusing questions before I figured out what was going on. After all that, I should be asking you that question, but it's not my business. Letting him go, he scrambled to his feet, clutching his hand. You just assaulted me. Only after you touched me first. I rose to my feet. I've played your game. Can I go home now? I almost didn't care if they arrested me as long as it led to a bed. Get her out of my sight, he snapped at the officers standing at the door. I was all too happy to leave. I breathed a sigh of relief when they led me to the front door. One was even kind enough to walk me to my car. By the time I got home, I figured I could get about 5 hours of sleep before I had to be up and get ready for my next shift. Falling into bed, if I had known what was going on at the embassy, I would have called out that night. Written and narrated by Temperance Quill. Edited by Editing by Elizabeth. If you care to help support this channel, please like and subscribe, and you can sign up for our Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or Venmo at Temperance Quill. Links in the description.